one of the things that we always used to say at at home was, I would tell the kids that people need to know that you care before they care what you know. And
That's good.
and that applies to everyone.
Indeed.
Everything,
Yes.
with kids, with relationships, with your boss, with everything. And that's that whole vulnerability, that whole authenticity. I mean, it's sort of everything wrapped up into one. And I think if we are more honest and with ourselves and with each other, it'll be a better space, which then becomes a better world.
Tell me what you're waiting for, the best is all for you. I gotta pray some more since I come home to you. I had to line it up, and they say we shouldn't shine it up, but that's just how his timing was, and look at what we do. They cannot tell me nothing, baby, the way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come to where you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you whenever, I keep my eyes on you forever. Man, we got the kind of love that says the word.
Welcome back to the Progress Podcast, where we dive into the heart of marriage, family, healing, and love. And today we're just going to dive into parenting and family and life in such a unique way with a very special guest. First, I want to introduce my lovely wife and partner, Seela Fugit. What's up, Seela?
Hi,
girl.
welcome. Hello. We are your progress coaches, and we are guiding you through the journey of building stronger relationships, connections, and just drawing yourself closer to God.
Well, without further ado, we're really humbled and honored to have a very special guest with us today. Joy Thomas Moore is a distinguished media professor, author, and perhaps most notably, although she has an amazing story herself, is the mother of our governor here in Maryland, Wes Moore. Born in Jamaica, she moved to the Bronx at age 3, and then her career includes winning a Peabody Award for her work in radio and television, serving at the Annie E. Casey Foundation in Baltimore, and as president and CEO of JWS Media and Consulting. In 2018, she authored The Power of Presence, Be a Voice in Your Child's Ear When You Are Not With Them, which explores 7 key pillars of presence that parents can use to positively influence their children. And before we hit record, we were just talking about how we are in the midst of it, Seela and I, as parents of a 7 and 10-year-old, and how her book has truly inspired us. If you have not already, you need to go get this book, but we'll get into that. But without further ado, Miss Joy Moore, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your story with us. Oh, we're honored to have you here, have you here in our home. Thank you from the bottom of our heart. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for all you do. My gosh, I am just so the way you inspire people. That is wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I know we always start with one Bible verse. Bird, you going to give us?
Yeah, we are. So Proverbs 1, 8-9. Listen, my son, to your father's instructions, and do not forsake your mother's teachings. They are garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. And we thought that was a perfect verse for your book and just talking about parenting and the power of a presence.
Well, as you know, my dad and my grandfather were both ministers.
Right.
So it is so appropriate
Yes.
that we start with that, because that was one of my dad's favorites.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I picked that because I was like, this goes really good for her book. And, I think a lot of young people forsake that now, the teaching of their parents, and take that for granted. And I think as I get older, I realize how important it really truly is.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it is the foundation. I know that my mom passed, I guess, 2 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Right before the election.
I remember right before the election night.
A week before the election.
Yeah.
But she did have her joy. One of her last joys was being able to vote for her grandson.
Oh, right.
And
love it.
So much of what I do and what I am and now my kids, because of my mom. And because, my dad died, many years before, but just having that foundation that, as you say, the presence never, ever leaves. Nice. And we talk about her and say, oh, Ma used to do that, or, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So,
No, we both have definitely, Celia and I have experienced loss over the last couple of years. Of course, my grandmother, who I know you knew well, with 97 passed, and she was like a second mom to me.
wow.
And then we also, Celia lost her mom earlier this year as well, who was another mother to me and a grandmother to our kids. And so we are still processing those losses. And so understand that but their presence certainly lives on. Certainly
Absolutely.
in such a powerful way.
So much of what you do, who you are, what you say, all
Yes,
those things,
yes.
you can look back
Yeah.
and say where it came from.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the effects that it ripples out, what my mom taught, and I'm sure you feel the same, is that those small lessons that just continue to ripple through generations and generations. We were talking in the kitchen this morning about like Wes and where he is, and I'm sure that comes from generations of prayer and praying over you and praying over him, and just sometimes I feel I get in this rut of like, oh, but everything's not happening and I'm not doing, or maybe it's not happening for me, but maybe I'm starting that ripple of for the next generation, and that prayer and just that foundation. And so I thought about that as I was reading your book, the foundations your family has set.
Yeah, no, without that foundation on our end, when his death Wes's dad's death was so sudden.
Yeah.
Wes wasn't even 4, and his younger sister was Shawnee was 18 months, and my eldest, who was from my first marriage, was almost 10. So here, like overnight, you've got this family, that's literally shaken, and but we weren't broken, and I think a lot of it had to do with the faith and with the foundation and the support that we had from my dad and my in-laws, and we made it through.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Well, that takes us into kind of our first
I mean,
question.
the first question,
I want to
we're already
make sure
there.
this is close enough for you too. There you go. Yeah. Thank you. I was looking. I just want to make sure we can hear. Yes. So why don't you get into the first question, because that kind of moves us right
wanted
into
to
it.
dovetail on to grief, and so when your second husband died suddenly, how did you and the kids process the grief, and what role did your faith play in that process?
Well, actually, my faith took a beating. And
That's real.
when I was, he went to the hospital and first, and thinking that there was something, sort of stuck in his throat, and I brought the kids, brought Nikki to school, and the kids to the sitters, and went to the hospital. And the whole time I was driving to the hospital, I said, "Okay, God, he's got to be okay. He's going to be okay." And if you let him live, if he's okay, then I will do this or that. And at the time I was smoking, so I said I'd give up cigarettes, whatever,
Right.
and of course that didn't happen. And so I was angry.
Yeah.
I was angry that this really, really good person.
What's up, friends? What's up, family? Thanks for watching and listening to the Progress Podcast. We really appreciate how you've been a part of this journey so far. It's been a quick few months that we're here, and we're really excited to continue going forward in this journey. We really would appreciate having your support via a donation. Check out the links in the description to consider making a donation. Your contribution allows us to continue to bring this content to you at the highest quality, and to continue to secure the best guests, to continue to sow into you, and to continue this journey going forward. So check out the links in the description. Thanks for being a part of this. We're really excited for all the things to come as we make progress.
Was gone. But again, probably the whole notion of presence started with him, because I felt him every day. And, I felt his things that I would, for a long time, say, well, okay, what would Wes do? And how would we, we tackle a thing? So, I had a partner that I couldn't see.
That's beautiful.
And but also all the time I knew, having grown up in a house of faith, that there was another partner there, another one I couldn't see.
That's what I thought you meant in the beginning.
And so eventually I was able to revive, that love of and my faith.
Yeah.
That's good.
You talked about your family, and obviously in your book, you talk about how you were in Tacoma Park in Maryland, and then you moved to New York to be back with your dad and your mom and your family. How did that family come around you and support you in that season? And how was that instrumental to the development of your 3 kids?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think my mom, I think within a couple months after, Wes passed, my mom recognized that I needed a break. And she said, okay, we're going to come down. I want you to, go with your girlfriends. And we took a trip to, sort of a spa-like thing. And so I think, I think parents have this innate ability to know what you need, even before you know what you need. And so they were always there for us. They were, even when the whole thing with Wes and going to military school, it was a friend of my parents who just, told me about what her son had done. And so it sort of grew from there. And that's probably one of the most consequential things that I have done as a parent was letting go.
Yeah. I read that part, and that was hard because I think about having to let go of my kids one day, and I'm like, how will I do this?
Yeah.
It's hard to trust and let them go.
Absolutely. And that's it. It's the trust.
And you letting him go to with guns and war and all this other stuff. And I'm all worried about college or the mall. I can't even imagine.
Well, that's the thing. We never had guns, like toy guns and all that. We just never had it in the house. And here I was contemplating going to military school.
Right.
But it was the right thing. That was the season that he needed to go.
Yeah, we read the book. We were reading the book and we were joking this week. Ooh, Wes disrespected his mom.
She put it on there and I was like, yay. You're like, he surely disrespected me. And I was like,
he didn't disrespect. Yeah, you said he didn't disrespect your parents. He knew better than that because y'all were living in their house, but he did disrespect me and we had to address it. And I said, okay, yeah.
I think your mother could relate to that.
My mom could relate to that. Yeah. And my grandmother might have looked at me sideways. If she saw a thought bubbling in my head, she might have looked at me like, you're going to think twice before you let that come out your mouth. So, we were resonating with that story, certainly. Yeah. So
let's talk about blended family.
Yeah.
Because that's been your upbringing. And you've had a blended family before that was even a term. So why don't you talk?
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, you had your daughter, Nikki, from your first marriage.
Uh-huh.
And then, you kind of had then you married Wes Sr. and kind of had a blended family before there was such a thing. And of course that connects with, like I said, my grandmother and my Uncle Reg. And then my grandmother married my grandfather and then had the Fugit, my dad being the first.
Side, yeah.
Right. And so I've, then my similarly, I've, lived in that experience. My father remarried as well. And so it wasn't called blended family back then. But how did you navigate, having to parent and then, being, I guess, a single mom and then marrying and then being a single widow mom again? How did you kind of navigate the blended family aspect?
Well, I think as long as, as folks act like adults in that situation, it's a wonderful thing because kids can have two moms or two dads.
Yeah, bonus mom, bonus dad.
Bonus dad,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Bonus grandparents,
Yeah.
bonus aunts.
Yeah.
So, but I think that the one thing that I always tried to do was never talk badly about the other parent. Yeah. Because in essence, that parent is half of your child. So basically what you're saying is half of you is no good, if you decide to, badmouth that parent. So, kids have to know that they're loved, just because parents, can't get along for whatever reason, that they're still loved. And once they don't have that security, then I think that's when kids get into trouble.
That's very true.
As a follow-up, what did you and your Wes, your second husband, agree on going into the marriage, right?
He was very supportive of Nikki's, biological dad.
Okay.
We invited him over to trim the, Christmas tree and over, for dinner and, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, he was very supportive of it. Yeah. And he was very much a part of our family until Wes passed. Then I think for whatever reason, he was not able to be present anymore. And so.
Yeah. You talk about that very transparently in your book. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Even the story of Nikki wanting to go
Yeah.
go live with him. And they
Yeah.
call you the next day. And I was like, that'd be my daughter. Think she's a great plan. And then get there and be like, Mom, come get me.
Exactly. Yeah. But sometimes you just have to sort of let them see them. So because the reality is, unless they get the fantasy out, they can't really deal with the reality.
So true. Because then, I know things I've held my daughter back. She's maybe resented a little bit that I didn't let her at least try. So sometimes you gotta let them.
Yeah, find the right time to do that, the right way to do that. In certain scenarios, we're coming into that season now with our oldest. It's certainly a challenge. And I know, at least as a father, having daughters, I probably see it differently than I would if I had sons. And there's probably pluses and minuses to that. So I'm still just talking about myself, navigating through that reality. Like, as a dad, what is permissible in this day and age, and with social media and devices, so many. I know you talk about that a little bit in your book too.
Yeah.
So much to navigate. And I know your grandkids, I'm sure, starting to navigate it.
Yeah.
as
Well, wasn't on a very clear
Yeah.
about the kind of social media and the amount of social media. They're not allowed on this and that and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
especially Dawn. I think that's one of her the things that she is most she talks about a lot as part of her portfolio as First Lady. Making sure kids have a really healthy relationship, with social media. And sometimes that means not having a relationship at all.
Yeah, that's what we are.
We are there. We've had to take things away, and we gave her a little bit of rope, and we saw that she couldn't handle it. And we had to take it back.
Down.
So, it was just small things like a texting with a friend from school, and just another girl. But when we checked, we were like, nope, you're not ready for that yet.
Yeah, exactly. I think the government has a sort of a role in this, which I don't think that they're really, taking advantage of. And because I do think there should be more regulation.
I agree.
As to, I think one country actually did ban.
New Zealand
or Australia?
Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, I know it was one
Yeah.
of
They
those
did
two.
something recently where they banned it. Yeah.
Yeah,
To a certain age.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's appropriate.
I do too. We tell our daughters they probably will not have a phone until they're 16. And this Christmas, she made her Christmas list and wrote phone 50 times. And so we changed it to 2030. The Christmas list for 2030. You're not getting a phone.
She didn't notice it at first,
soon.
and then she saw that I changed it. She got mad. I'm like,
Well, that's your list for 2030 because you're not getting it now.
So we're navigating that.
Yes. So I also wanted to, in your book, you talked about finding mentors for your kids. And I love that. And we are very intentional about that. You met one of them as you were coming in. But how did you find those people? How did you select them and trust, Well,
I think probably God has had a hand in that too. The right people coming into your life at the right moment. And also being able to spot the wrong people and not having them. If there's someone who is doing something that bothers you, then that person necessarily should not be around your kids because they're going to pick that up. So there were many instances where I just did not allow sort of interaction, or if there was had to be, it was very brief.
Yeah.
Did you ever have those with family? Not to get too personal, but how did you draw boundaries with family? Because we all have that unhealthy uncle, if you will, that's always drunk or whatever. Come on, we all do.
Talk about your own family.
I don't even have any aunts and uncles, so my parents are both only children, so I can throw that uncle under the bus. I don't even have one. But with family, sometimes it's hard to draw those boundaries with unhealthy family.
It is, but again, you limit this exposure.
Yeah.
You have to be respectful. But there are limits, and that's not the relative that you let them spend a summer with, or that kind of thing. Just you're respectful, but guarded.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah, it's definitely been a process. That's been a process for us too. We've learned how to go slow and evaluate, see how it goes before we agree for certain people to have any kind of intensity of intimacy or frequency with
Right.
our kids.
God's blessed me with a spirit of discernment. So I have that. So I see things even before others
But
see
then learning
them.
to trust it.
And then learning to
And
trust it.
Because we
is
want to
so
think the best of
hard.
Yes.
people.
And
Yeah.
I'm so hard-headed that it's been so many times I didn't trust it. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be so hard-headed. And
Yeah.
So it's definitely
We have
been a
daughters and
process
as
for
women,
me.
I'm like, well, she seemed okay to me, but you got to really be the one to vet to a certain. I can only probably vet to a certain level.
Yeah.
But this in terms of so yeah, it's been I don't know if that's fair or not. I'm open to being corrected in terms of how I think about that as a parent. But I feel like in that situation with women, it's been more allow my wife to really see and understand as a woman to woman.
Absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
somebody we want our daughters to model and be like and be around.
Exactly. It is about modeling. That's why with I was fortunate enough when we moved back to the Bronx. My my parents were there, and then my brother and his wife, my younger brother and his wife lived in the house downstairs, and with Wes, it was they became so close, and I'm really, really close with my brother. And he's the kind of model that I would want for my son. So much so that he was his best man when they got married,
That's
when he and Dawn got
beautiful.
married. So, and trusting my brother, and of course he would tell me everything. And, I knew that there was no better role model for him.
It's so important for young people to have role models. Like we are intentional. We've picked godparents that are young in their 20s, like because I always say, and that's why I told you they have therapy, is that like I want them to have other trusted adults.
Absolutely.
I might not be the person, and I'm okay with that. I'm secure enough in myself to know
That's it.
I'm not here for everything. And so I want to put equipped, quality, excellent people around them. So when they're
Right.
struggling, they know who to go to.
Exactly. And because a lot of times kids, and we know that from ourselves, we don't always want to go to our parents about something.
They will lecture you probably. I know I do that.
Yeah. And so, it knowing that there's someone who's reasonable, who's smart, who's caring and wise,
Wise, yes.
sort of counseling your kids, that's everything.
Yeah. We've been very selective about that, and I want to be very close. I was blessed to have amazing uncles and still have amazing uncles who helped me and guide me in my career. And rest in peace to my Uncle Mike, who's not with us anymore, who was a Navy veteran. So I've been blessed to have that. So it's cool to hear Wes, and reading the book, that Wes had that similar experience of being able to have uncles, because it definitely was a village for me as well growing up. Between I was right down the road from Tacoma Park in Silver Spring, and and then Bub would be in Baltimore every other weekend in the summers. And so that was my experience growing up. So certainly understand having that village to really help shape and inform who I've become. And so it's a blessing to get that.
Yeah. Wow.
I know you mentioned, your book, you had so many diverse women.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
It was so cool.
You were saying before we got on air, I wanted to let you say it, but you didn't want it to be just about that your story
Right.
was unique. Talk about that, and also how did you identify such an amazingly diverse group of women, and how that came together and came to be for the book?
Well, yeah, I think at first I had no intention of writing a book. And Wes wrote a book several years before
Right.
called The Other Wes Moore, and it was it's the instant,
I got my
New
autographed
York
copy.
Times.
We have a copy in another room. I almost got it out.
So it was all over, and as he was
Yeah.
going around talking, there would, questions would, come up about me, and he would just say, "Look, that's my mother's story to tell," kind of thing.
Beautiful.
And so it's approached about, "Oh, why don't you write a book?" And at first I was real resistant, but then I said because I did not want it to seem to sort of exceptionalize, our story and our family and that kind of thing. And then I said, well, if I told the publisher, if in fact I could include other stories, just to show that there are just hundreds of millions and thousands of millions of people, who with the proper opportunity and access could do similar things with their kids, then, I would consider it. And so they said yes. And that's how the book, started, expanding to other stories. So many of the women I knew
Okay.
before. For example, Susan Taylor, I had worked with. And so I knew her story, and it was just so admired her as not only a businesswoman and an author, but as a mom. And I had met Loida Lewis once or twice before. So I knew her and, of course, admired her. So I just sort of went down, I wanted to pick a very diverse group of women.
You did.
And, from all over the country. And so things just sort of fell into place. And then once I sort of organized it into the pillars, that fell into place. So, when things fall into place, it's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, right. Keep going. Keep going.
Right.
That's how we ended up with a podcast, to be honest.
That is.
Okay. Well, tell me that story.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. I don't even know where to begin. Well, it begins in 2021. We were in this very room, and my wife had been at that point about a year or so sober, and she was... I
was ready to tell the world.
Ready to tell. She felt scared. God put on her heart to share it, what she had accomplished, what her experience had been for sobriety. And we began with an audio podcast, and we were sitting in this very room, and we were recording the trailer. And she kept doing it and messing up. Take 2, take 3, take 4.
It was video. It was audio.
Just audio.
It wasn't even video.
And we got to the point where she said, I turn around. Like, you can't look at me while we're doing this. Turn around. So I had to face the wall, and she's sitting over here and records the trailer.
By the way, no one listens to the trailer, so I don't think anyone ever listened to it. But I cried 6 times just to try to get it recorded. Because it was so hard for me to be vulnerable and to share my faith background. No divorce in my family. Both of my brothers were pastors in missionary work. And here I am going to tell I'm twice divorced, alcoholic, getting sober, all this stuff. And I was like, they're going to disown me. And people are going to throw stones at me. Yeah. But as we did it, people started contacting me, and women got free, and I got to sponsor women, and families started getting restored. And Russell and I started doing marriage coaching. And so that's kind of how this has been birthed. Yeah. We've done marriage coaching with no podcast, no platform, just people in our homes. And
there's a statue around here somewhere that she hides. We did, I think, 12 episodes in like 3.5 months, and she had over 1,000 or 2,000 listens. I can't remember. It was over 1,000 listens.
Wow.
Comprehensively.
I didn't care if anyone listened. It was healing for me.
Yeah.
That's it. Every time I spoke, every time I shared, it was like these layers were just falling off of me, this weight that I'd been carrying for so long. And
I think that's what people want. I mean, realness.
It was real.
It was the authenticity of your sharing.
And it didn't just help her, it helped a lot of other women. And even I have texts with some of my guy friends like, wow, I didn't know. I know people who struggled, and I didn't know that about you or your family, your wife, and it's really helped me get a different understanding.
Yeah, because
alcohol in particular.
I think people sometimes think the alcoholic is the person under the bridge, with the brown bag.
Right.
But
stereotype.
I was the mom in the carpool line, and there's a lot of other moms in the carpool line with wine in their Stanley cup. And so I felt called to say, I was a struggling mom too. You don't have to suffer alone.
Yeah. Right.
And now 5 years free and helping others get free.
And then fast forward, here we are with a reboot.
Yes. Here we are with the reboot.
Yeah, and just felt like it was time. We had gone through so many transitions in 2023. So we had 3 major deaths in the family within 12 months. And
so sorry.
Economic upheaval. I had to basically wind down my business in a front-facing manner. I had a number of people working with me and kind of for me at one point, and then things took a nosedive. And so it was a lot. And so, but we felt like it was time to end the second half of this year to bring it back and to bring it to another level with the YouTube. And blessed to find our friend, the producer, who has the gifts and the talent to do it, as you've seen. I know when we talked to you a few months ago, when you agreed to do this today, you saw it and said, "Oh wow, can I?" You didn't even ask you. You said, "Can I come?" And we were like, "Of course."
Are you serious?
We know I wrote a book. I said, "No, we didn't know you wrote a book. We didn't know you wrote a book, and you want to be on our podcast?" Okay. And so
that blessed my heart so much. You have no idea.
So anyway, that's the very long story short. That's how we've gotten here, but we've prayed through all of it.
Yeah.
We felt called through all of it to create a space and then to do it in our home. And that's the other part of the story is I had a vision for doing it in this very room, but I thought it might be too small. And then Sony, our producer, saw it on FaceTime and then got here and was like, yeah, we can make it work in here. And so it's intimate, but there's been so much blessing that's happened in our marriage, hard conversations, but painful conversations, but growth for us, for our family. And then for literally, we've done ministry in this home. We've had women and families sitting on that couch you saw upstairs, talking about very vulnerable things and sharing and getting healed. And then, of course, FaceTimes and Zoom calls and phone calls have happened in this house and on the deck behind our house when we're stewarding lives that God has brought to us through our church community, through our extended community. And so it's just been like, can we do this here and model this here and put it online where people can access it?
Yeah.
And blessed to have people like you who want to be a part of it and share their journey with it. So that's long story short. Since you asked,
Long story.
I'll take the opportunity.
The
to
short
share.
answer is we're being
No, I
obedient.
We're being obedient
to God's.
and that's what you
Please
saw
ask us to do.
upstairs on our chalk wall for this year. Our call was a family was to be obedient, and it has not been easy. We've made mistakes. We continue to make mistakes, but grow and learn through them, and through the grace of God, be able to continue to do this. And so,
Yeah, well, oftentimes, I mean, making mistakes are the fastest way to growth.
Yes.
well, we've been in an accelerated season, Lord.
We are in accelerated growth season.
I feel like I'm just failing on so many fronts sometimes. I'm real.
No.
I'm be vulnerable, but that's like, okay, God, what do I got to learn in this one? And my godfather passed away. Talking about mourning. A lot of my godfather, whose father was one of the founders, first bishops in Kojic, Church of God in Christ,
Wow.
and down in Texas. And he always told me, you want to find the mirror before you find the flashlight. But most people look for the flashlight first. So when the problem's out here somewhere, no, the problem is right.
It's right there.
And so that's what I remember. That stuck with me. He said that to me a long time ago. May he rest in peace. Abner Haynes, Senior. Look him up. He's in the Kansas City Chief Ring of Honor football player, and was the first African American executive at Zale Diamond Company.
Oh, wow.
So again, and I say all this because I read your story and think about your son, my friend Wes, our governor, and I see so many parallels in terms of the richness of the community that he had around him that propelled him, and I feel like I have that same richness too of people who I didn't even. You're 15 years old, you're 20, you don't know. Thanks God, Father, see you, but then you look back now at this stage in life and say, man, what blessing did I have to have a godfather who sat with me and told me about his life and his mistakes and his what he learned from his father, and so he has a book that I have here that he wrote that tells his family story. So anyway, that's really the motivation for what we're doing here. And how God's called us to be obedient and to have the courage to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, I'll stop. You got me going.
I want to talk about a part in your book that I actually was going to use for the encouragement, but I want to talk about it because it's been so vital for us, even just within the last couple weeks of, you told a story about Wes saying something at the dinner table, I think, or someone said something at the dinner table and they said, have you heard us say that? If you haven't heard us say that. So just recently, the girls told us about a babysitter from church a long time ago. So it's not the one now. They told them, son of a biscuit. And I'm like, that's a play on you know what. I'm like, and so it took me to your book. Have you ever heard me say that? No.
Yeah.
And I used that again this morning. One of them told the other one to shut up. And we don't talk. And I said, have you heard me tell Dad that? They were like, no. And I'm like, then we don't talk like that.
And we don't say, And I got that from my parents.
Okay, there you go.
It's so simple. But like that is such a wonderful thing rather than like fussing at your kid and you don't say that. And do you know what that means? Because I've definitely done that before. Let's be honest. But just the simple, do you hear me?
Yeah. And that's because of the trust that they have in you as a parent. That it will resonate.
Mm-hmm. That was powerful.
That's again, a lot of things I've just brought from my parents, and and I know that they're kids who don't have parents that maybe young or maybe going through things or whatever, but that doesn't mean that there can't be other people in their lives. There can't be organizations, the Boys and Girls Club, connecting kids, to if you know that a kid is struggling, how can you be helpful? How can you sort of step in and help that so you don't have, in the case of, let's say, the other Westmore, what is so sad about that particular story is that had he had the opportunities and sort of the village that, perhaps, my Wes had, his life would have been so different because he's really smart, but for whatever reason, and I don't know if you got to this part yet, but his mom was the first in her family to graduate from high school, then went on to junior college, community college. And again, she was so smart that she was accepted into Hopkins.
Wow.
And she couldn't
I
go
remember that part.
because of public policy. And at that time, whoever the president was, had cut the Pell Grants. And so she couldn't afford to go. So her life took a turn, which then turned her boys. So, we often sort of don't think about the ramifications of public policy and the impact that it has on families.
Yes.
We could, instead of having someone in prison that you're going to be taken care of for the rest of their lives, you could have had someone who could have been a scientist or
Cure
teacher,
cure cancer.
You have no idea.
Or built a bridge, or whatever, and
Mentored
contributing.
Husband and the father, right? Yeah, who we need.
Exactly.
That's important.
Yeah.
It's sad. So sad.
And I really saw an interesting juxtaposition in your book. You used the word pride in two different contexts.
Yes.
One is, of course, the pride that, and I've talked about on this podcast, is in my story about having too much pride and how pride can be our downfall, particularly as men. But then, so we talk about that in terms of pride of not having too much pride that you don't put your kids first when it's time to put them first. Right? To humble yourself and put your needs aside. But then you also talk about pride in your lionesses.
Yes.
And your girlfriends. And you talked about being at American University, and I could, having spent time at George Washington University, working there and on AU's campus, and have my own college experience, could relate to what you're talking about, having those girlfriends that were for college, and some come and go, and people come and go, but it's a core group, and then you go beyond.
Yeah.
You look back after a few decades, all of a sudden you have this amazing group of in your case, women. So talk about, and that's two different things, but talk about both of them if you could, about how you set your pride aside to really focus on being a mom and in that right season, and then also how those women support you and help hold you up in your ability to do that.
In fact, just in the past month, about a month ago, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of one of my pride, one of my girlfriends from college. And we're still, we were the same people who were in the wedding the first time, in the wedding again.
We're doing it again.
I'll do it again.
I love it.
You're a bridesmaid. You're a bridesmaid.
So we had a little bit more control as to what we wore this time. But, and it's so funny because, you do have to have pride in terms of who you are and what you are and who you want to become and who you want your kids, to, what they will become. One of the things that I did when they were young and I was driving them back and forth to school was it was right around the time that Whitney Houston had the song, I believe Children Are Future. Yes.
Oh, I believe the children are the future.
Our future, da-da-da. And I literally played it every day over and over until in the car while they were riding and until the tape broke. That's how long ago it was. It was a tape. Right.
Cassette.
You can roll it back up with a pencil.
When the tape popped, it was over. I remember that sadness when the tape pops. Yes.
But I wanted them to really, I think the words were so, instrumental in terms of the development of their own sense of worth and value and that kind of thing. So it's that kind of pride. But then when I was writing the book and I was looking for some kind of sort of metaphor, to relate to, and it came up on the lioness. And then what is the lioness who is there, and they're got the lion who literally just sort of sits around, while the lionesses who work, no offense,
Just the truth.
who go out and they're the hunters and they're the ones who band together and take care of the cubs. And they bring in the food and then the lion eats and the kids. So, So it was that strength, that, sort of this collective of women, of females. So that was the metaphor that I chose to use in the book.
Yeah, that's beautiful and powerful.
It is. It's really got me thinking, who's my pride? Who do I have? Because I've always associated the word pride with negative. And now it's like, no, I'm reframing I'm seeing this, renewing my mind in a new way. Like this is a cool thing to have.
Use the term tribe, or who's our tribe? Find your tribe.
Exactly. And it's women, or it could be, I mean, it's,
It's funny you mentioned that song. You don't even know this, by the way.
Okay.
I sang that song at my 5th grade talent show and won. Yes,
sing,
I
by the
did.
way.
And I won. And that was the kind of, I knew I could sing because I'd been in church, but that was like the first time singing outside of church that people liked. And I thought, oh, they do like me. It's not just the nice church ladies that like me.
You got to sing it now.
No. No, I'm not singing. But no, I've always loved singing, but that was the first song I ever did like in front of non-church people.
But it's so important, believe in yourself.
Yes. And I'm hearing the words in my head as you were saying it.
Yeah.
I'm going to play that for the girls.
They probably never heard it. No,
They'll roll their eyes. We play so many songs for them, and they roll their eyes at us.
Stuff from our time, or before even. I'll play some old Stevie Wonder, and they'll tell Alexa to stop. Like, do not turn my Stevie Wonder off. Okay? I know.
Do you want to be in timeout?
Yeah, look, I pay this Alexa. You can wait for me to get one song in, and you can play your more current, whatever you want to listen to, if I allow it. So yeah.
Yeah. So one of the other questions I had for you, as someone who's also divorced, and I know you were divorced and then you lost your second husband, how did you find the courage, after your first husband, to love again? Because it's so hard, and for many women, get stuck.
Yeah. Well, I think because we worked together. And so we started out, so there was a mutual, respect for our craft. At one point, he was at that time when we first met, he was a reporter. And then he was promoted to do public affairs programming at the station. And then I became his writer-researcher. So we worked together closely. And so it just sort of happened.
Friendship first.
But it was friendship first, respect. Again, at that time I had Nikki, so it was, who is this person, someone I want around my child?
Right.
And he was amazing.
Way you explain him, it sounds like Wes, like the Wes that I know. And so many things in your story when you talked about your family and just who you are, how you guys exude joy and love. And every time I've seen Wes, and now reading he gives that, and now reading your book, I'm like, oh, this is who they are.
We know where the energy comes from every day.
Yes, because every time I see him, he's just high energy and so kind and so warm and genuinely cares. Yeah. I'll share with you, in 23, sorry, we're in 24 right now. In 23, Russell had a really tough mental health year. He lost people, his mental health wasn't well, and there were times I was really concerned. And I saw Wes out at a comedy show, and he, him and I are just talking. He's like, "What's going on? How you doing?" And I said, "Honestly, Russell's not well." And he was like, "What's going on?" He was so caring, and what can I do? And it was completely unexpected that he would just be so, and it really touched my heart that somebody, because I was in a time where I felt alone in that, and I was like, wow. He is just so special that he cared enough to see how we were doing, how Russell was managing.
Wow.
So
and mean it.
And
at my grandmother's funeral, I was saying upstairs, my great aunt just turned 103 this week. And my great aunt was at my grandmother's funeral, which is her younger sister. And my grandmother was 97 when she passed, right? To give you some context. And Wes leaned over and talked with her for about...
He knelt down.
Knelt down for a good 10 minutes. They were trying to move him along, right? To see everybody. And he engaged my great aunt. And I have pictures of it, and I just observed it. And it was so powerful. So anyway, reading your book definitely comes through where that comes from, that root. And it's not just your generation, but your parents.
Absolutely.
And it encouraged and inspired us, and I encourage everyone to read it. It will inspire, encourage you to think about, maybe you might not get what you want in your generation or in your time, but what you sow into the future, you just do not know, right? There's a season and time for sowing, for watering, and then for reaping in the harvest. And you might not reap the harvest, but the people who come after you certainly will.
Absolutely.
And so it's encouraged us and inspired us. So that's why I want to share those vignettes.
Thank
Yes,
if I could, right?
Wow. Yeah, I'm, and it's really wild sometimes when I sort of watch him.
Right.
And the way, because it's genuine.
It comes
But
through.
so much
You feel
of what I see in him, I saw in his dad.
Yeah.
And as I said, he wasn't even 4 when he passed. But that, talking about sowing a seed.
Right.
And then my dad was really instrumental in my brother, and so his tribe
There you go. There you go.
was a lot of that is just so much of what is the authenticity that that I hope sometimes people are afraid to sort of be vulnerable.
Yes, people are.
But getting past that and saying, okay, now I can feel for you. Because others have felt for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that comes from.
I think one point in your book you talked about how you were honest with your kids when your husband died.
You didn't mince words.
You didn't mince words. Tell me how you arrived at that decision and why, if I'm not mistaken, your book you said it was the right decision.
Yeah. Well, I just tried to, I didn't feel that being any other way was going to be helpful.
Yeah.
To them. And we're doing age appropriate from one.
Of course.
For the, Nikki was very much, because she was older. I shared a lot more with her.
Of course.
Than I did with, Wes or Shawnee. But the fact that they had all witnessed what had happened, that, is Nikki and was the one who went and got the, EMS folks to come in and, and was holding Wes and little Wes while I was with Sean. They were exposed to it.
Right.
So to try to make believe that it was something else than what it was would have been, it just didn't make any sense. And I did, counseling, with them, and which I thought was really helpful. They may not have thought about it or, thought it was important, but I think deep down inside, I think it really was helpful, to them.
Good. Thank you for that.
Thank you. As we've experienced grief, we've tried to navigate it, and when you lose your parents, you don't have, who you going to call? I don't have any aunts and uncles, like I said. So it was like, and so us navigating grief, we're learning.
Yeah. How to explain to our kids, they were part of my grandmother's funeral and then losing their grandmother a year later, almost exactly a year later, and how to process that for them and and it was sudden.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, your mom?
Yeah, and they've experienced a lot of grief. My dad passed 6 years ago.
Yeah, and our oldest was there at hospice.
They were just
visiting.
know what happened.
And they thought we had a couple more days, and then she's calling me. He just passed, and I'm like, oh,
I'm so sorry.
I'm here with our baby. He was like less than a year old, and they're there with our 3-year-old daughter who's processing in her own way kind of what happened. Suddenly
We've had to process, and we use the real words. We explain it at their level. But I think for us, our faith, that we will see them again. And I realize that they're so tender in their faith and they don't understand that. And, but just explaining to them that Mimi's in heaven and we'll spend eternity with her, and explaining that to them, although it's still confusing, I think it gives them some peace to know that.
And I think, sort of, and which you probably already do, sort of sharing with them sort of the stories and the things that will help sort of fortify
the
them.
Memories.
The memories.
The presence.
Yeah, the presence.
Power of the presence.
So 2 weeks before my mom passed, she wrote a Storyworth book. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's basically like an email service where they email you questions, and every day you answer the question, and then they take it and put it in a book. It's called Storyworth, and we gave it to her like 4 Mother's Days ago. She didn't do it. She knew she knew she wasn't well. She knew. I mean, she texted my brother the day she died about changing her funeral arrangements. And
wow.
he ignored the text because he's like, what is she? She's losing her mind. What is she doing?
Yeah.
She knew. So she had written this book. And so we've read some of those stories to my girls, and I read them too. And that's such a gift to have.
Absolutely.
Because she was private. In that generation, you know, you're raised to be private. But having that has just been so beautiful to share with them.
And as they get older, they'll have it. And
Absolutely.
be able to understand even more of it. And now my wife's written a book.
And I wrote a book.
Yeah, and
It's
so-
not published yet. It's right behind you. It's called Fearlessly Seen.
Oh my goodness.
And it's a journey to vulnerability, healing, and purpose. And it's just
Wow.
a collection of stories of things I've been through, from alcoholism to sexual addiction to trauma to abuse, domestic violence, divorce. I mean, I've been through a lot. So I just share. Even I share about not being able to have kids and how God restored my womb. And, you know, so it's really cool. But it's crazy that I wrote
So
it.
our daughters will
I
have
want
that.
a copy.
Well,
It's coming out. I celebrate 5 years of sobriety in February, and I'm going to release it and have like a sobriety and book release party.
Don't worry,
We'll invite you.
will
I will
get
be
all
there.
the
Thank
things.
you.
I will be there.
So I'm
Oh my
excited because
gosh,
I've been dyslexic my whole
congratulations.
life, and you know, so reading, and it's always been a challenge for me. But I just this year, after losing my mom and my job, it was like I felt empowered to do so many new things. This podcast and writing a book, and you know, I'll share with you more later. But I'm doing some cool things in the marketplace also. So it's wild. Wow! But it took
Congratulations.
grief and hard walking through the crushing, the pressing, all of that to get where I am.
Yeah, it's been a year. It's been a couple years. Like I was saying, I can't remember now what I said before we recorded or what I've said on recording, but it's been a year, but it's ending on an amazing note.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Oh, please, thank you.
Means
This has
so
been
much
such a
to
blessing
us.
for me.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. So we always end with the Bible verse.
Yep.
And this one is very relevant. Isaiah 30, chapter 30, verse 21. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." And so the power of presence, certainly in your book, speaks to that. And it certainly has informed us and encouraged us and empowered us with some new tools to use in our parenting journey. So I just want to thank you and ask you, we always end with an encouragement, and wanted to say if you had any final words of encouragement for our audience, anybody who's listening or watching, that you'd wanted to share to conclude.
Well, first of all, this has been such a pleasure and
Thank
such
you.
an honor
you.
for me to be and see you guys again. You know, we usually pass each
Yeah,
other
some
here
event,
and
yeah,
there. So,
yeah.
you know, I'm so glad that we spent that time
Thank you.
Me
to
too.
talk.
Yeah. What's up, friends? What's up, family? Thanks for watching and listening to the Progress Podcast. We really appreciate how you've been a part of this journey so far. It's been a quick few months that we're here, and we're really excited to continue going forward in this journey. We really would appreciate having your support via a donation. Check out the links in the description to consider making a donation. Your contribution allows us to continue to bring this content to you at the highest quality, and to continue to secure the best guests, to continue to sow into you, and to continue this journey going forward. So check out the links in the description. Thanks for being a part of this. We're really excited for all the things to come as we make progress.
One of the things that we always used to say at home was, I would tell the kids that people need to know that you care before they care what you know. And you know, and that applies to everyone.
Indeed.
Everything, you know, with kids, with relationships, with your boss, you know, with everything. And you know, and that's that whole vulnerability, that whole authenticity. I mean, it's sort of everything wrapped up into one. And I think if we are more honest and with ourselves and with each other, it'll be a better space, which then becomes a better world.
Well, we need that.
Man, that's
so
beautiful. And I have an encouragement. I want to encourage you all to get this book.
Yes.
Especially if you are a mother. It has been such a blessing to me. I think I shared with you over text. I was reading it. It just, my heart was just becoming so sensitive for some of my single mom friends. And I picked up the phone and called one of them and just affirmed her. And how can I serve you and what can I do for you? And she was like, where's this coming from? I'm like, it's this book, and I'm crying. So I just want to encourage you. And the audio version, your voice, and just having you read it is just the icing on the cake. So I just want to encourage you.
It wasn't just that Wes read the foreword.
Oh, I cried on Wes too. Really. I was a mess.
And as my daughters, it was a real family.
It's a real family.
Yeah, you had everybody. So yeah, that was. I've been listening. I actually read. She did the audio, most of the audio, and so
because I'm dyslexic. Audio's always easiest for me.
So, really? They read it.
So
okay.
my encouragement is get the book.
Get
please.
the book. However you like to get it, get the book. So
thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Again, there'll be links in the description to this book. Download it, or download the audio version, make a purchase. We appreciate that, certainly. And also support this podcast. There'll be links in the description as well, where you can support what we're doing here to keep having amazing guests like Ms. Moore and all the guests we've had so far on this journey with the Progress Podcast. Of course, you can follow along with us at My Progress Coach on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. Really appreciate you if you know, subscribing, liking, sharing our posts, sharing this content wherever you listen, wherever you watch, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Amazon. We're there. Right? So we hope this blesses you. Right? We want to keep doing it and keep moving forward into the coming months and years. And so we're just so grateful. So again, thank you, Miss Moore, Mama Moore, for being here and the generosity of your story and for your family and what they're doing for the state of Maryland, encouraging so many people across the country. Again, get this book. Can't say that enough. So with that being said,
until next time,
couldn't love
you if I didn't love you.
Peace.
Tell me nothing, baby, the way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come the way you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you whenever. I keep my eyes on you forever.